the issue is, what do we do to make sure that these individuals are safe? And what do we do to make sure that they don't infect other people? Fortunately, we've had individuals and institutions that have stepped up to help Milwaukee County, the city of Milwaukee, St. Francis, which has been a strong partner in this as well, to help us deal with this important issue. Specifically, I'm referring to the Archdiocese of Milwaukee, St. Francis de Sales Seminary, which has a location that straddles the Milwaukee-St. Francis border. And on this piece of property, there is a convent that had been occupied through January of this year. But starting in January of this year, this convent has no longer been occupied. So the Archdiocese reached out to our City of Milwaukee Health Department. Our City of Milwaukee Health Department made the connection with them. They, along with the county, went and toured not only this facility, but the Cousins facility to see if either of these facilities would be appropriate to be a house so that individuals, again, older individuals, primarily people who are susceptible to getting COVID-19 or are symptomatic, would have a place for themselves to be safe and to make sure that they were separated from other people so that they would have the social isolation that they need. This location, again, St. Clair's Hall, turns out to be a very good, solid location. So working with the Wisconsin National Guard, working with the Milwaukee County Housing Division, working with our Community Development Block Grant Office, along with our Health Department, we have been able to work very, very closely, and we're just ironing out the final details, which with the Archdiocese right now that would allow us to have essentially two wings, one for people who are susceptible and one for people who are symptomatic. This would allow us, again, to provide them with safety and to provide the social isolation that's necessary for our community. And the reason that this is a good site, and I don't know how many people have been to this site, is to the east of it is Lake Michigan. There are not many homes in this area, and it will allow us to work very, very closely in a collaborative effort. So I want to give a huge shout out to County Executive Abley and his staff. I want to give a huge shout out. Our health department, our community development block grant office has spent literally hundreds of hours over the last few days preparing this site. In addition, we have gotten donations from the United Way. We've gotten donations from a number of local hotels, and Steve Mahan, who I think may be joining us on this call, can go through those hotels that have stepped forward so that this location will be up and running hopefully as soon as this week. So let me stop there and turn it over to Steve to talk a little bit about what he has done and how closely he's worked with the county and the state to make this a reality. Steve?
Thank you, Mayor. This has really been a collaborative effort throughout the county. We sincerely want to just back up to what Mayor Tom Baird said, and thanking the city of St. Francis for being so open to making this happen. And the Archdiocese, of course. But this has been a very large collaborative effort from the city and the county. Also, the city of Milwaukee and Milwaukee County Continuum of Care of Shelter Network that has been very active. The donations received to date have been very gracious from the Plaza Hotel in the city of Milwaukee, the Ingleside Hotel in Pewaukee, Homewood Suites, and a number of Marriott hotels have provided linens, multiple linens, a lot of disposable goods such as paper goods, and the Milwaukee Continuum of Care has also stepped up to make sure that this site is fortified with everything it needs to be sustainable moving forward. And we're very thankful.
And Steve, again, thank you for your work. Steve's put a lot of hours just in the last few days on that issue. So again, the purpose here is to provide some housing stability as well as social isolation to individuals who are very vulnerable in their lives right now. We know that there's a lot of people who have lost their jobs. We know that there are a lot of people who have underlying health conditions who are susceptible and need a place to stay. So this takes a lot of the burden off our shelters, and at the same time, I think does so in a way that's very responsible. So a huge shout out to the Archdiocese, a huge shout out to everyone who's been involved in making this a reality. The second issue that I want to talk about just briefly is we continue to see numbers grow here in Milwaukee County. The numbers just have come out in the last hour. We're over 609, I think 609 is the count I saw for Milwaukee County. For the city of Milwaukee, it's 478. So we're continuing to see cases throughout the county, but a disproportionate impact in the city, particularly on the northern part of the city. And it's hitting a lot of neighborhoods on the northern part of the city very, very hard. So we want to stress, as we always have, how important it is to keep that social isolation, that social distancing. This is spread from individual to individual through droplets in the air. So sneezing or close contact is what is allowing this to move so quickly through our community. So we're going to keep hammering home on that theme of please follow the stay-at-home order, the stay safer at home order. This is in place for your safety. This is in place to make sure that we can get through this and get life back to normal as quickly as we can. I want to talk a little bit about what's going on in Washington. We've had a lot of contact with Congresswoman Moore in her office. I talked to Senator Baldwin yesterday, and we know that there are resources that are coming from Washington. I earlier today had a meeting with key members of my staff, with my budget office, with my Department of City Development, with my health commissioner, to make sure that we are going to, as quickly as we can, working in conjunction with the county and working in conjunction with the state of Wisconsin, get these resources out into the community as quickly as we can. And we know that there are two pressing areas right off the bat that we have to deal with. The first, of course, is the healthcare one, which is by far the biggest immediate concern that we have right now, to do everything we can to stem the spreading of this disease. That means putting more effort and more resources into tracing. That means doing everything we can to identify those individuals who have tested positive and ensure that they are isolated, again, for their own sake and for the sake of their family members and the greater community. But we want to do that, again, in conjunction with the county and the state, so that there's not a duplicative effort, that we're adding to each other's efforts to do that. In addition to the money that's going to come through the main bill, there's going to be a significant amount of money that's going to come to Milwaukee through the Community Development Block Grant Office. And again, Steve Mahan, who is on the phone with us or on the screen just minutes ago, is a person who is involved there. We know housing needs are going to be very, very important. And that's something that we are working to make sure that people don't lose their housing. Of course, the moratorium is now in place against evictions and foreclosures. I think that that's a solid step in the near term, because we don't want people to lose their homes during this period. Part of our conversation earlier today was with Rocky Marcoux from our Department of City Development, and we are going to be working later this week, reaching out to financial institutions to see how we can be working with them to make sure that they're not calling in loans, to make sure that the bridge loans are there if necessary, to see what we can do to make sure that businesses don't suffer. We know that this is an incredibly challenging time in terms of the unbelievable increase in unemployment claims. We know what a pressure is placing on all types of businesses. So again, working with our state allies, working with our county allies, we're going to do everything we can to ensure that that doesn't become an even greater problem than it is. But I am not minimizing that problem. Right now, we're facing two really challenging situations. Obviously, the unprecedented healthcare challenges that we have not seen in decades, probably going back to 1918 in this community or in this country. And in addition to that, the economic hardships that are being caused as well. The final issue that I want to touch on is the issue of voting. As you may recall, we've had challenges this week as the number of people who have in the past, very, very, very reliable poll workers, have literally at times, sometimes dozens by the hour, dropped out of coming back to us. And this includes our chief inspectors. The chief inspectors are the individuals, when you walk in to vote, those are the people that are running the site. And we've lost a high number of chief inspectors who don't feel that it would be safe for them to work. That has caused us a huge, huge, huge problem. And that is why I contacted the legislative leaders, why I contacted the governor, to say that I felt that we needed to have this election be a voting by mail election, that the balloting should be done by mail. I was very, very pleased to see Governor Evers is taking a leadership role in recognizing the difficulty that we face here. But I want to put this in a context. Right now, if an individual tests positive for the COVID-19 virus on April 3rd, April 4th, April 5th, April 6th, April 7th, my understanding is the only way they could vote, because that's after the time to request an absentee ballot, would to go vote in person. I hope I'm wrong on that, but that's my understanding of the law right now. We do not want, and that could be dozens, if not hundreds of people who are going to be testing positive, again, on the 2nd, the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, I'm sorry, the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, and the 7th, that 5-day period. We don't, for their own sake, and for the sake of the poll workers, and for the sake of other voters, we don't want them to have to go vote in the polls. We're looking for a way to safeguard their right to vote in our democracy, but not to put them at risk, and not to put our poll workers at risk, and not to put other members of the public at risk. I think it's worth noting that just yesterday, the governor of New York, Governor Cuomo, has delayed their primary through the end of June. Why is this significant? This is significant because his decision actually puts his primary after the date for which delegates for the Democratic convention are chosen. In other words, he is willing to give up his political clout for his state, in part because of this health crisis. I'm trying to look and have my staff look right now, but I don't know that there is any other state other than Wisconsin, and this is something I invite all of you to look at and help me figure this out. I don't know that there's any other state in the next month or month and a half that is planning on having in-person voting on election day. I think state after state after state has recognized just what a serious public health challenge it would be to have in-person voting on election day during the next month. And that's why, I appreciate the governor's leadership on this. That's why I'm calling on the state legislators to look at the leadership that we've seen in virtually every other state, Democratic and Republican, to act on this matter. So